It's Oklahoma Archery. Everything archery based out of Oklahoma for Oklahomans. Let's get it started. Hello, everybody. I'm David Bosca, and this is another Oklahoma Archery podcast.
I'm Neil Cooley.
And I'm Kreg Griffith.
We got Mr. Oklahoma Bowhunter himself coming to y'all on the Christmas Eve of deer season. It is the night before opening morning. Tomorrow is the best day of the year for 90% of people that do archery out there. So we wanted to have Kreg on. We wanted to thank him for a lot of things he's done for us this year, and kind of just, we need some perspective on bow hunting in Oklahoma. So we figured we'd go straight to the resident expert. Kreg, tell everybody how long you've been shooting a bow and arrow.
So I started picking up bow hunting in 2008, and I was kind of in between starting my career and finishing school, and I just kind of fell in love with bow hunting. I've always deer hunted since I was about 14, but I didn't really start picking up archery equipment until I'd really had the time to learn how to use it.
So you were mid late 20s, probably?
Yep, mid 20s. Yep.
Okay.
25.
So you hunted before,
What
but
was
not
your
with
first
bow.
Say it again, David.
I said, what was your first bow?
I was given a Matthews bow is what I was given, my first bow. And then I ended up, long story short, it got stolen out of my brother's house. And so I ended up buying a Bowtech. And so I killed my first deer in 2009 with a Sportsman's Warehouse edition Bowtech bow. So I don't know if you remember that store in Edmond, though, but it was a pretty cool hunting store.
Yeah, right there off of Kilpatrick Turnpike. I sure do remember that one.
Yeah, that was before Academy.
What was the name of it?
Sportsman's Warehouse. You're probably in kindergarten, Neil.
It was a good time. Hey, I was shooting good groups in kindergarten. I don't know what happened since then, but I'm the one person that shot more arrows every year and been farther and farther from the middle. So it's an interesting talent. I don't know how I've acquired that. Man, what was it that made you kind of get into bow hunting specifically? Like, as a new person that had hunted before but hadn't archery hunted, what was like that thing that just stuck with you?
I think for me is the challenge of using the bow was just so much harder than going out there and putting corn out 200 yards away from your deer stand and then shooting the first deer that comes in. I think with bow hunting, I learned to get closer to animals, learn how to hunt better, learn to pattern deer, started using trail cameras. So I think it was just all the latest technology, you just kind of making you a better hunter.
Pretty modern hunter. What are you doing for scent control? What's your theories on?
Man, this is going to get into some debates, but honestly, I've killed a lot of deer wearing what I wear to work, and I go to the deer stand. I don't even wear camo. For the last 7 years, I've worn solids and stuff that I'm around patients all day long, stuff I went and ate a burger joint or barbecue at lunch. But my setups and my walk-in are more planned out than most people. And so I try to make it to where that deer is not going to come from that direction. There's been a lot of times where I went and got Starbucks and drank coffee and the deer never smell me with an Americano with cream and sugar and all the smells to it. So
maybe they did smell you, and that's 90% of the secret.
Well, I don't know. I do think people can get over the top on scent control, but to me, it's just, if you've got bait or something like that, that's going to smell a lot stronger than what you are. So
what about ozone? You ever been a fan? Ever tried it?
I have tried it. I am a fan of it, but honestly, I just forget to charge it, and then I don't use it because I'm lazy and don't plug it in. But I've had the closest encounter with a buck, and it wasn't a very old buck, but I mean, he got about 6 feet away from me, and my wind was blowing directly at him, and that I was using that as onyx, and I definitely think it works, but it's just, you know, it's better just to set up your stand placement so you don't have to worry about all that stuff.
I think it works, but not for why it's advertised. It might take some of your scent away, but it still smells like nothing. And if you've ever run one in a blind, you'll know what I'm talking about. And there's all kinds of stuff out there that like nose jammer. It just smells like something different. It smells like not you. So if it works, great. It eliminates your scent. If not, cool. It covers it up. And we know that works from other applications. So I'm always curious if people that have your bow harvesting pedigree, what they think about ozone. And some people love it. Some people don't like it. Just kind of a curiosity.
Yeah, I think some people are just superstitious. Once they use something, they always got to use it. So if they've had some success that season, they're always going to use that. I think same thing with arrows and broadheads and stuff. If they had a successful season, they're probably going to continue that until they don't have a successful season. And then they're going to question their equipment and try to go out and buy stuff. But I just try to push people to shoot what they enjoy, not just try to shoot what's on TV and find something that they enjoy.
So you're saying a trophy deer can be pretty circumstantial based on how many deer you've killed. Is that a matter of preference?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's just whatever their goals are when it comes to hunting or which equipment they use to kind of go after them.
So walk it through me like I'm a brand new bow hunter. What's a good goal for me out there? If I'm just getting into bow hunting, I've never killed a deer with a bow. Because you see on TV and you see on the internet all the giants, and it's like, that's not really a possibility for about 98% of the bow hunters out there.
Yeah. I mean, I just think they have to figure out what their goals are and to achieve that goal. If their goal is to walk out and shoot a 200-inch deer, they're going to hate hunting because it's not practical, but I've also met some Oklahoma bow hunters. Their first year, they killed 180-inch deer. So I definitely think it's possible, but your percentages are so low when it comes to those goals, and the story that he did, I felt like was some of the wrong moves. He saw the deer and he went in after it. Like that's usually not something you do with a bow. You don't walk towards a deer. You might try to cut in the direction that he's going, but he went right in after it. So
a lot of strategy goes into it.
Yep.
Yeah, you had said a while ago you walk in holding a Java, maybe chewing juicy fruit. Who knows what it is? But and you said that you're going to make sure you don't take a path that a deer is. So for everyone else, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
When does your strategy and your tracking start for you? I mean, obviously it's not right now or the weekend before.
Yeah. So let's just take a blank slate. If you take a map that you might have a road access and you've never seen a deer come from the south, they only come from the north. So you're going to hunt that place with the north wind and you're going to walk in from the south where the deer don't come from. You might have a pond or you might have the neighbor's barn next to you where a deer's not going to come from that direction. So that's bulletproof where that deer's not going to cross that path. It's different when you're hunting a block of woods and the deer could come from anywhere. Those aren't bulletproof wind spots. I'm talking about a place where you've physically never seen a deer come from and you go as close to that as possible, but yet still have the deer out in front of you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Pretty heavy on the ingress and egress, just getting in there undetected, however, wherever.
Correct. In some properties, that's not possible. Some properties, you have a lot of options to hang those stands. So
I know
you start when in your system. When do you kick off?
What do you mean? When do I kick off? When do I start mapping out the properties?
Yeah. Obviously, you'll have older properties that you're real familiar with, but if you've got new properties, when should a hunter Yeah.
If I was a new property, I would try to walk it out, find deer sign, deer trails, and then how am I going to access that deer trail without busting messing up their movement patterns, if that makes sense. Once I walked it, I would, put a trail camera on that area and then start monitoring with a trail camera.
When you're trying to put a play on a buck, target buck, a specific deer, you've got him coming, you've got him going. You might have a couple cameras on that property to see where he's at. Are you going out, not necessarily blind? Are you going out hoping that he's going to go, or are you going to abstain from sitting that stand, hunting that deer, hunting that property until you know? So where's the level of like certainty if I was trying to plan out, how to get on a deer without just going, oh, it's opening morning, I'm going in, which is what I'm thinking about right now in real life.
Okay. I honestly probably wouldn't go in until he's moving closer to daylight or has been in daylight. So October, I don't really hunt mornings much. I only hunt evenings, just because your odds of bumping them are so much easier when you do in the morning times. Again, they're going back to bed, and you can get away with that in November, but you do that in October, he may not come back until December. So I try not to hunt mornings, but yeah, that's kind of where I would start until. And one of my theories to me is, if that deer is in there on your trail camera in the morning time, then I would hunt that evening. If he's in there after 8:30 or 9 o'clock, he's only going to go about 100 yards away. But you have to know there's a chance you could bump that deer going in there that evening, but your odds are so much higher if that deer's moving in daylight.
He's been nocturnal the last 3 or 4, way early in the morning, midnight, and right at dark at the corn. Sometimes still in the light in the evenings on the corn. So I think I'm going to sit the morning out, and probably if he go in there, just depending on what the trail cam shows tomorrow, I think it's going to be a nighttime only. And it worked out of that same plot last year with the buck I killed. So I didn't hunt the first or second morning, saw him on the first night, killed him on the second night.
So I would rephrase that as evening hunt, because if you say night hunt, people think you're night hunting. So
we're 100% outlaw over here, man. The official deer hunting strategy of the Oklahoma Archery Podcast is shoot the first dozen you see at midnight and keep them scared of the dark all year long. It takes a lot. You're gonna drop some does, you're gonna drop some little bucks, but just get out there and spotlight the first 10 to 15, and they're scared of the dark for 2 years minimum. This is not legal advice. Do not go do that. Disclaimer: I'm not paying your green jacket fines if you go do this. But yeah, I do mean daylight and dawn. Crepuscular creatures.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about, because you look at different deer for big bucks on quite a few different properties. What is at this time of year? You see them, they're bacheloring in the summer, they're coming in regular. When do you see them start changing patterns? Typically, it doesn't have to be any kind of rhyme or reason, but what are guys looking for when he goes nocturnal or he disappears for 2 weeks? Like when do you start seeing him do different things?
Well, let's phrase big bucks. So, some people's big bucks might be a 3-year-old deer. I try to go after deer that are over 5 years old. So to me, he could be 125 inches, and that's a mature deer for me. Like, as long as he's got some character or something, and if a lot of times he's the meanest one on the block. And so that's why I want to target him, because he's pushing a lot of the younger bucks off that place, because he's the king of the hill. But I think with those deer, they all have patterns, and learning those patterns, hunting a smaller place, you can learn their pattern a lot quicker, but you can also push them out of that pattern a lot quicker. I hunt a lot of blocks of woods that sometimes connect and sometimes they don't. I might have a place 2 miles away from another place. And so you can learn that deer's pattern. So you may not have him on property A, but he shows up on property B a week later. So he's over there. And so just learning how they move. A lot of older deer want to move by themselves. even, September. So they're not really bachelored up. If you get a lot of deer together, a lot of times they're younger bucks. But I mean, doesn't mean there's not that 7, 8 year old deer and there's a spike running around with him just because, he might help keep the ticks off of him. I don't know. So
Basically, me and Dave going to an indoor tournament.
yeah,
That's what you're saying.
yeah,
No, I've seen that exact pattern where he was running with the boys, and then he ran. Number 2 got hit on the road, and he ran number 3 off, and it was just him and a little guy. And now we put the corn out about a week, 10 days ago, and it's all the little guys all together. And somewhere another 8-point that's about like the 10-point I'm after showed up, and they're kind of together, but not exactly timed. Like they might be running the same trails, probably hitting the same scrapes one after another. But we're starting to see those changing who they're around patterns. Like it's the little bucks and the does at the corn all day long, and then he comes in and they just scatter. So I'm hoping, and you might be able to tell us a little bit more about this. If you kill the best one in the woods, that's pretty much my goal. He's probably 3.5 this year. He's going to go between 120 and I don't know, maybe 135. I'm not great at scoring them. If we harvest that buck early in the season, how often do you see something bigger, comparable, another mature buck move in when you're in like close proximity to these places?
I think it can happen within 24 hours. It's weird. They just know the scent is not there anymore. And they can move in right away. But to me, they don't always have to be the most dominant buck. I mean, if you've got 5 puppies that they're all the same age and you drop food in the middle of the room, there's going to be a dominant one out of those dogs. And deer the same way. They're going to come to an area and they're going to kind of, make that dominant one. And it may not be the oldest one. It may just be the most stubborn dog that's in there. And so you've got to, find that one because that's a lot of times he's the one running them off. And I've seen where it might be a 7-pointer that's running off these 10 and 12 pointers, and you've got to take out that 7-pointer, otherwise those other guys aren't going to stay.
I read a management article about getting your big bodied bully 8s out of here and letting them little 10s and 12s stick around. They're like, it's going to go a long way for managing. Looking at all these different properties, do you have any sense of like management in them? Are you trying to shoot does off of certain properties, or is it just a kind of see where the bucks are and where you want to hunt kind of situation? What's the level of doe shooting potential for you this year?
So we've tried if we do shoot does, we try to do it on property that we own, that we manage. A lot of the places that I lease, they don't have that many does, so I don't want to go in there and thin out does when there's no need to. Areas around my house, there's not a large group of does, so I just feed them to keep them here, and I don't want to take them out because those are my odds of pulling in a buck.
It's a good way to look at it. I thought early on, before we'd started the corn up, seen some bucks, seen a lot of does. We started the corn up, and I'm thinking we got too many does. I'm thinking it's a 4-to-1 ratio, doe to buck. Well, we put that corn out there, and all these little bucks started showing up. I've got every spike, basket rack, 4-corn, 6-point, little 8 in the whole Osage, Tulsa County area underneath my corn feeder right now. And looking at it over the past 4, 5, 6, 7 days, I mean, I've got as many little bucks as I do does with 2 fawns. I'm like 50-50 ratio right there. So I don't, it's always that time old question of, do you shoot the does? I think if you've got bedding, more does will move in, and you might be pulling does from your neighbors, and that means you're going to pull the bucks when it ruts. Or is it they just know there's not as many does there, and they're not going to cruise your woods as hard looking for one that's coming into heat? So it's a chicken and egg kind of thing, but I'm always curious what different people's takes are.
Yeah, I definitely think some of the places that I, don't shoot that many does on, or don't shoot does, they get pushed into those areas either because of hunting pressure or just bucks just chasing them and they can't stand being chased. I've seen places, I hunt a lot of urban places, and I'll literally pull in to a neighborhood and I'll see 5 does standing out in front of that house, and that's because they're hiding from those bucks. It's not because of my hunting pressure. It's like they're just trying to get away from being chased, just to lay down for 2 hours without, being harassed by, that old 8-pointer.
Tell us a little bit more about urban bow hunting, because I've listened to you talk and it's fascinating to hunt closer to home, smaller ground. Everybody wants 1,000 acres, 2 hours out of the city, but let's hear about the other side of things.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I've got 3 young kids and full-time job. So it's one of those things. I have great property an hour away from my work that I could go hunt every single weekend, but I also miss a soccer game, or I miss lunch with my kids on Saturday. So a lot of the urban places allow me to go hunt before work. And I'll get out of the stand at 9 o'clock and be at work at 10 o'clock, so it's one of those deals that, uh, if you can put your time in and talk to landowners, they'll hunt. I hunt a lot of Norman, and Norman is one of the tougher cities to acquire land, just because there's a lot of people that are kind of anti-hunting, and so they want to see more deer. And I try to explain to them that, hey, if I'm feeding the deer, you're going to see more deer because I'm going to attract more deer, but I'm going to try to take out the buck that's not allowing those does to eat. And then when you explain to them that way, they're like, yeah, come shoot every buck. And I was like, no, it's not about that. It's just shooting the dominant buck that's going to not allow everyone else to eat,
I think you could write several books on how to talk to people on getting access to property. Tell me a little bit more about, like, not how to do it, but what the mindset is. And you've explained this to me a couple of different times. Like, what are you thinking? Like you were just saying, when you go talk to somebody and they don't have any reason to do you a favor and you don't know that person at all.
So I think the odds are stacked against us, because I think when David was in high school, he could go knock on someone's door because they hadn't had a bad experience with the hunter. And they're probably going to let him hunt because he was genuine enough to come knock on the door and ask for permission. And they're like, you know what? You came up and talked to me. You seem like a great kid. Yeah, go hunt or go duck hunt that place. But hunters in the past, I think, have ruined it because they didn't take care of their property. And the first thing I try to do is find the value of the landowner. It might be as simple as mowing around the gate, replacing the gate because it's making a ton of noise, and say, hey, by the way, I went out and bought a new gate at Atwood's and put it on there and took yours off and put it behind the barn. And they're like, you bought me a new gate? And I was like, yeah, you needed a new gate. And just the simple things allow us to continue to hunt these places. And I think that's what a lot of hunters don't do. They don't go the extra mile. They might leave their little Debbie snacks wrappers out there and their Pepsi bottle is out there, and they don't take care of the property like they own it. And then that rubs the landowner the wrong way. So I think first and foremost, if we take care of the land and not just chase the deer, you're going to either keep that property. And then I think the other reason is people take other people that weren't allowed on that property. And that's where it aggravates landowners, because they just, hey, I'm gonna bring a buddy with me. Well, I didn't give that buddy permission, so why is he out here? So you've got to make sure they're okay with you bringing. A lot of people that allow me to hunt are people I either go to church with, or people I have good relationships with. And so I tell them, like, hey, is it okay if I take a kid hunting, or if I take a new hunter out there with me? I'll make sure that I have a safety harness on them, and you make sure they're secure, and nothing's going to happen. So
It's a good way to look at it. I just think that so many people are defaulting to, well, how much is it to let me go hunt? How much is it going to cost me?
I try not to bring up cost. I just say, hey, I would like to, to deer hunt. And, there are a few places that I pay for, but there's a lot of places that I acquire just because I'm genuine about it. And, they understand that I put a lot of effort into finding that landowner. And then they know that I care about their land. Simply if they've got things on the property that they're worried about, say, hey, I'm gonna put a camera over there to make sure no one's even going over there. You might waste a trail camera just for security, and that gives that landowner peace of mind.
Yeah, being genuine, raised on a farm out here, the biggest thing Dad hated was, if he gave someone permission to come fish in any of our ponds, when he walked down there and it's exactly what you said, seeing their lunch wrapper setting there, that was it. He was done.
Yeah.
Bottles was the worst, but you're absolutely right. And if someone come up at let's say where he was working at and says, hey, do you care if I come? And he'd go, who all would come with you? And if they spelled it out front, that's one thing. But if he drove into the drive and all of a sudden there's 6 people there, well, Johnny said I could come out here and go. Well, no, I don't think so. Yeah. I think being honest up front, what your intentions are, will go a very long ways.
Yeah. I mean, with any relationship, if you take advantage of somebody and then they feel like that's all you're doing, it's not going to last, just because every time they see your pickup, you give them a bad taste in the mouth. And so to me, it's like, as hunters, we need to value what they think of what we're doing just as much as killing that old deer. So
what would you put in a written agreement, like a letter, like, hey, this is my proposal, this is what I'm going to do for you, this is what I'm not going to do, and here's 3 character witnesses at the bottom? Like, what would you as a landowner like to see in your hands? Like, you want to meet them, you want some FaceTime, you want a handshake, you want a phone call when you're headed over there. Those are the obvious things. But as far as a permission letter, what's too much and what's just enough to get by and not seem like it's a cookie cutter kind of thing?
I think it needs to be like less than half a page. I think if you write a full page, you've lost them. I mean, if you're a landowner in Oklahoma, you get letters every month from people out of state trying to buy your property or wanting access to your property. And so it's one of those deals that as soon as you get one of those letters, they quit reading it. So keeping it short and sweet. But I think something in that letter, having a connection, either somebody that they know, name drop somebody that they know that's mutual, would be your best bet. Or find some type of connection that you can connect the ties where they want to call you back, or like, oh, this is interesting, I'd like to hear what else this guy has to say. But when it comes to writing the sweetest thing, I think that's different for every landowner, because you don't know their key values. Um, I'm an animal chiropractor as well as a human chiropractor. So a lot of these horse ranch people, they don't really want you to kill deer on their property. But once you show them value, like, hey, I can take care of your horses more because I'm out here, then they like hearing that kind of stuff. So it's all about what they value into. Like I said, just maybe trimming a trail and clearing up their property and picking up random sticks in their driveway that you saw and just throw them in the woods. Like, that goes a long way for landowners. If there's a bad storm and you're out there picking up stuff that has nothing to do with your hunting place, that's going to win over that landowner. And like I said, it's just, you're taking care of that property because you see a need, not just because you want to go in there and shoot something.
How many times are you going to a property in a year before season? Once to hang a cam, once to hang 2 cams in a stand? Do you try to avoid it to not leave scent, or do you not mind going in July, August, September?
It depends on the parcel. I mean, if you're hunting 5 acres or you're hunting 500 acres, there's a difference. I think you could walk around that 500 acres a lot more, but if you've got 20 acres in town, your odds of going in there and hanging a camera are a lot better than staying out of it until. I mean, I have places that I don't even have stands on and wait till there's something that I actually want to chase after. I just have cameras on it.
I was gonna say, what is your preferred bow hunting stand? Are you a hang on, a climber, a ladder, or a saddle?
Man, I've got them all. But honestly, I like ladder stands because they're safer to get into. It's just nice to climb up into. But I also like cedar trees, because they cover your scent. A lot of people want to cut down every cedar. If I get a place and it has some tall cedars on it, I'm so happy, because to me, they cover your scent too. And you can usually get away with a lot more movement in a cedar tree because they're just, a big green blob to deer. And so as long as you blend in with that blob, you're not moving around a ton. I mean, you can get away with way more, but if you've got a blue sky behind you, those deer are going to pick off your movement so easy. So I would say ladder stand, hang on stand, and then, if you've got to be mobile, then the saddle stand would be the next bet.
Have you done much saddling?
Uh, I have, but I'm not very confident in it. I mean, last year I hung a stand about 12 feet high because I just didn't want to get any higher. So I I know that there's reasons to go higher because you can get away with more, but your angle of shot's going to be a lot tougher for me the higher I go. But it's going to be a lot better, for that blood trail because that arrow goes straight down through them. Um, but yeah, I'm not a fan of heights. So, uh, you know, I have a hard time going 20 feet up.
My buddy Jeremiah is a saddle guy, hunts with a Black Widow recurve, and he'll hang them between 3 and 6 feet off the ground in a little cedar tree. I mean, just what you would think it'd be eye level, and he's like, "That's what the tree gave me."
Yeah.
Don't fight it. If that's how high you can get, the deer don't mind.
Yeah, I've killed several deer off of a 4-foot ladder stand, just because the tree was wide enough at the base. It's a place where I take my kids to, and so I put two ladder stands right by each other where I can just hand something to the kids. And like I said, there's one ladder that connects to it, so you're only about 4 foot up, and killed several deer out of that 4-foot ladder stand.
Are you pretty light going in, or you got snacks and bags and machines and accessories, or you just got whatever's in your pocket and your bow?
I take if I've got kids, I've got more snacks. But if it's by myself, I'm not really a snacker. I'm not one of those guys that have to have beef jerky or whatever. I eat big meals and I just kind of wait it out. I might have something to drink with me, but I don't have like a power bar to keep me going. If I'm hungry, I'm gonna get out of the stand and go eat. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and dwell on it.
So what's in your hunting pack? What's in your bino harness? What's your list of essential things walking into the woods?
So I use Maven binos, and I use a Kuiu bino harness. I wear a lot of Kuiu. I wear a lot of solids, like I said earlier. I do have some camo that I wear when it's extremely cold. I'm going to take an iPhone mount, just because when I get out there super early and it's on a Saturday or Sunday, I like to watch football on my phone. But I just turn the sound off. There's been some times I just put my earbuds in and just listen to music until the action starts happening, and then I'll turn it off. So I definitely think there's different ways to hunt, but you got to enjoy what you're doing. If you're out there and you can't move and you can't enjoy life, to me, that's not fun. Like, you're off work, you got to enjoy what you're doing.
Listening to you talk, and I know you've said enjoy, you've talked about the pleasures of it. What's your goals down the road? What would you like to do as an established Oklahoma bow hunter? How would you like to go about pushing this sport?
Yeah. So for me, my goal every year is to take new bow hunters out to the woods. I definitely think they keep saying that our hunter numbers keep declining because kids are out playing PlayStation. They're on TikTok all day long watching videos, so they could care less about hunting. And a big complaint is, well, if we get all these guys bow hunting, they have no place to go hunting. But it starts with taking one kid hunting. So every year I try to take a new bow hunter, try to encourage a patient to pick up a bow, try to get them outdoors, because guys need that camaraderie. We need that. If you grew up playing sports, you miss that team atmosphere. And if there are guys that are individuals and golfers, they don't really care to have teammates. But for me, I like encouraging people to get outdoors and to do what I do. And if they don't like it, then they can move on to fishing or whatever else that's outdoors. But I think for me, it's always taking new people outdoors. just because it's a goal you can reach every year. If a guy wants to kill 160-inch deer every year, he might do that every 5 years. He might do that every 2 years. He might do that every 20. Like, it's just not a feasible goal to hit. And I think finding things that you enjoy doing, like you hear about these seasoned bow hunters that, well, I don't hunt anymore. I just take other people hunting. There's joy in that, and I think we're called to love other people and to take other people hunting, not just try to kill deer for ourselves.
So it's not just kids. If you had a 27, 28-year-old guy you met and was interested in that, listening to you talk, that's still a new hunter. It didn't have to be a 17-year-old or 18-year-old kid. It can be someone you work with and that you just never realized.
Yeah. So last year I took a high school kid that he's been bow hunting 3 or 4 years, never killed a good deer, put him on one of my properties, kind of showed him where we want to hang stands. He helped me hang the stand. And then within 3 days, he killed his first buck. But just allowing him to hunt that property, and couldn't been a better high school kid, very genuine, appreciated what I offered him and always asked the right questions. But yeah, it's just, and this year I've got a guy, it's actually a landowner that I hunted on for a couple of years. And then he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Kreg, by the way, I got to sell this property." And I was very helpful on helping him get some plumbers and electrician to help him close the property. He had it contracted and had a hard time getting people to come fix all these things that were wrong with it. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey man, I would like to take you to lunch and visit with you more." And in that conversation, I got him to come over to the house and shoot a bow, and I was willing to give him a bow to get into it. But he happened to be left-handed. So we had to go to Oakland and get him a bow. And so, but we gotta get him dialed in so he can go to the woods.
It's like you're never going to get to go kill your first deer again, but you can relive that adrenaline if you take a buddy. So
yeah, I think
that's a neat way to look at it.
And I think it's just good karma. If you're always trying to help other people, good things are going to happen to you. Whether you expect it or not. It's one of those things that if what you do for others, whether it's your neighbor, it's just sometimes helping them with their food plots or whatever. They might be the successful one that year, and as long as you're happy with that, there's a lot of guys that they can't stand to see their neighbors successful. And I would high five my neighbor. I'd be the first one over there to help him drag it out of the woods or take pictures for him or whatever.
It's it's a chess match. It's not that I want to kill the mature deer. It's that somebody needs to kill him and needs to kill him clean, and it needs to be a trophy to him. If John Dudley came in and shot a 3.5-year-old 10-point that scores 122, he's probably not going to be as happy as some first timer out there that's, never even seen a buck with 10 points, let alone stuck an arrow through one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just helping them achieve their goal. They might be a muzzleloader hunter or a rifle hunter, and, they don't have the time to bow hunt all season long, and so if you can connect and help build that relationship, if they kill a deer, you can check it off the list and like, hey, that deer's gone, and you can move on. But if you're still hunting a buck that you think that's out there and they've already shot it and you don't have a good relationship with them, you could waste your entire season chasing a deer that's not even there.
Yeah.
What are like, if you had to say 3 tips to give a new bow hunter this year, like what would your 3 things to keep in mind? Doesn't have to be do this or don't do that, but like, what's your 3 things?
I think know your limits with your bow. If it's a traditional bow or a compound bow or a crossbow, know what you feel comfortable shooting before you ever go out there. I've killed does at 50 yards, but would I ever shoot a buck that far? No. I know I can shoot that far, but I don't think I would really shoot past 35 yards after the buck that I was after, just because there's so many things that can go wrong past 35 yards. you're off just a hair and your shot placement is totally off. So like know your limitations, I think is the best. And know what you're going to be happy with, with what you shoot. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have 3 tips, but that would be at least the one that.
I just feel like it's such a hard sport to get into because you got to go buy a lot of expensive gear, camo, bows, all the accessories. And it's like, I don't want that to be a barrier to entry for anyone. Like, you do not need to go buy your own dehydrator. I got one for you. If you slice it up, come over, we'll throw it in, get it marinated with your favorite Butcher barbecue seasonings, and, just leave me the Ziploc bags and I'll throw it in the morning and go do whatever I'm doing and swap them over at night. You have people that'll do stuff like that for you. And it's like, you save so much money not buying.
But it goes back to that camaraderie. If a guy got you into that sport, he's probably going to give you some of his older equipment that he's not using. And then if you always trickle that down to somebody else, blessing somebody else with, an old bow that you just never pick up anymore because you wanted to buy a newer bow, that's where we wouldn't have those issues, because you always have a buddy to kind of like lean on and kind of have a mentor that you call and ask questions. I think the biggest thing with Oklahoma Bowhunter, I think if people are always positive and they always support each other, that would go a lot longer way with those guys asking questions and don't feel like they're being bashed by other hunters. I've deleted a lot of people off the page just because they made fun of somebody's harvest. Some of them are pretty funny, but it's not meant to be online like that. It's not something you just say out loud to somebody, just because it's funny doesn't mean it's right.
Well, tell everybody a little bit about getting their harvest submitted to the Oklahoma Bowhunter book. How many years have you been doing that, and where did it come from, and what are the rules?
All right. So I started in 2010. My cousin and I were both bow hunting a lot. And my brother was getting into it with us, and we wanted a page where people could just share photos. So we came up with the idea to create a Facebook friend page, first name Oklahoma, second name Bowhunter. And then I just had all these random people start adding me once I started posting about 20, 30 pictures. And I was getting guys from all over the state that were starting to send me photos. So that's kind of how I got started in 2010. So this is my 14th year of posting photos, and it's overwhelming at times because I'll get 100 pictures in a week, and I've got to edit those pictures and post them. And what I mean by edit them is I add a watermark of the logo to let people know they were killed in Oklahoma. If I just post it, then a lot of times it's not an Oklahoma kill. It might be an Oklahoma bow hunter, but he might have killed it in Wyoming, or he might have killed an elk in New Mexico. And so we loop those photos on a TV at the Backwoods Show. I post those on Facebook. On the main page was just Oklahoma Bowhunter. And then now we have a group page for the last 2 years where you can kind of ask more questions and post more pictures, because it's just confined to just bow hunters. The main page, someone's grandma could pull that up. So I really try to keep those pictures clean. And so I used to not post any pictures with excessive blood or anything like that on there. So my number one rule is I don't like to have a harvest in the back of someone's pickup, just because it's better to have a natural setting. So even if someone takes a picture in their barn or shop, I really don't post those either, just because it doesn't really celebrate that deer that much. If you take it outside in front of a cedar tree in your neighborhood, it's going to look a lot better photo. I don't care if it's in your front yard, but it looks a lot better than having a house in the background. But just have some type of natural background is what we go for, just because if a magazine was to post your photo, they're not going to use it if it's in the back of a pickup. They want the most natural looking photo, because it just looks a lot cleaner, and it just looks more presentable for non-hunters.
I think it's a great resource, because just by starting that page, you made us all on the same team. You made everybody, and it's not a competition. And I'm going to say that again for everybody out there. Your goals as a hunter are not my goals as a hunter, are not Craig's goals as a hunter. Dave, you might, I mean, whatever your goals as a hunter might be, but just by making it a community, I think the trickle down of knowledge is going to help people so much, because it's not just about going to war in the comments about whether that deer's 3 or 4. Or whether ozone works, or whether nose jammer works. Like, you just have people chiming in that's like, hey, this worked for me, and I put it at the base of the tree 20 yards away. And some person's like, no, I rubbed it right on my boots. You know, it doesn't matter if it's deer urine, scent tracker, scent blocker, scent jammer. There's somebody out there that's tried it the same way. And I think you pick up so much stuff by like running drag lines and how to hunt scrapes and rubs and just things that you can rely on other people from. And I think that all being Oklahomans and all being kind of just, it's a part of that. It's part of that team, man. I don't know how it kind of took off so much, but you've done a heck of a job with it.
Yeah, I think we all want to celebrate. You know, I always say we're kind of like the News 9 of bow hunters. Like, we get to celebrate with everybody else. I mean, and there's been years where I'm constantly posting someone else's picture and I don't get to post mine because I haven't shot one. So, you know, it's tough editing all those photos and seeing the success of other hunters. But it also encourages me, hey, the deer moving, I got to get out in the stand. You know, if you see me post a lot of pictures, it's because the deer moving, you know, and that should encourage people enough just to go hunt, you know, and sometimes they see a buck that they were chasing on there and they get to message that hunter and find out, hey man, you're hunting a couple miles away from me. And sometimes those turn into great relationships, you know, the more they work together.
Oh yeah. If you could go like Dallas Barber on our last episode was talking about, go strategize with your neighbors, you know, put a plan together. Cause if you got 6 cameras and they got 4 and the guy on the other side runs 10, man, you guys could do some damage around there.
Yeah. But you've also got to be okay with them shooting that deer. And that's the hard part, I think, if guys maybe said something to each other and they don't work together anymore because of one comment. And so it's just, you know, try to be mindful of what you say to other hunters and try to be, you know, encouraging and, you know, be willing to help them just as much as you're going to put the time in for yourself.
When's the last year you didn't harvest a buck?
Oh, maybe it might have been 16 and 17. I can't remember. There might have been a stretch there where I was just being too picky, and 2020 I shot. It might be the last time I shot just one, and I shot a buck that was kind of wounded, and he was struggling, and he wasn't even something I would have shot, but he could barely walk 100 yards. My cousin had shot him the week before, and I just didn't think he was going to make it. So, you know, I did the right thing and shot him, but I've got him mounted up in here, so he looks good on the wall.
You get a whole wall full of them behind you, and it don't matter what they score. People are too busy looking at them. What's the best one you've got?
I've shot a 14 pointer that grossed 174. So he means a lot because I shot him on some family land, and it's pretty neat. So,
do you name him when you're looking at him on the cameras?
I name him if I hunt with other people. But if I'm hunting by myself, I feel like sometimes you don't really have to name them unless you're communicating stories with some of your close friends. Then it's kind of cool to name them just so that way you don't go, yeah, that 9-pointer with the kicker and the left G2, and that way it's simpler to explain something if you can give them a name. One year I named one Millionaire just because the property I was hunting was for sale. And to me, you have to be a millionaire to buy it. So I jokingly named this buck Millionaire, and it took me all season long, but I finally got him. So I thought that was kind of a cool name just because it had more to do with, you know, how much the property cost than what the deer was.
Fair enough. Which one have you hunted for the hardest?
He might have been it because I moved my stand 7 times. He busted me 2 times in the stand, and so I had to move my stand location. I saw him 4 times on the hoof. The 4th time is when I got him.
Man,
Nice.
love to hear it. It's been 50 whole minutes, and we haven't let Dave ask you, what bow do you shoot?
Is that his punchline?
Yeah,
What I want to know
always.
what you shoot, Dave. What do you shoot?
I got a PSE.
BSC.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
one?
I don't have it's a snow camo is what I call it. It's an all white, black here, there, and the other. I've got a PSE Citation and a Dominator Duo X, brand new one.
Oh, nice. Is that which one are you going to hunt with this year?
I don't hunt.
You don't hunt? Man.
I don't hunt. I've shot a deer back in the 90s, where my business name, is Butcher Barbecue. And how that all come about was I owned a meat processing plant, and we've done so many deer. We do 1,000 a year. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've seen all I want to see.
Yeah.
And getting up or going to the woods just never was my cup of tea. So I did what I did.
Is it the mornings or is it just in general?
Just all of it. I just didn't do nothing for me. I enjoyed cutting them and cleaning them and making all the sausage that they wanted. And I got my thrill was them guys calling back and going, my gosh, that was the best summer sausage or bratwurst or, my cup of tea's in the meat world. And I absolutely loved hearing people brag about how we took care of their harvest. And to me, I just did my part for them. That's all.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I say you would be the hub of right after they go back. I guess back then they would have check stations, and then they go right to Dave's, and they're just by the time they're trying to drop that deer off.
Yeah, it would be nothing to have 30 people standing there, and we would cut it off. I could skin, and we did everything boneless. I could skin and bone about 35 deer in about 3 hours. And until those were taken care of, no more came in because I owned their property. And if I'm putting my name on it, I wanted to take care of it as good as they did. So I wasn't the kind of a processor that just stack them up like cord wood and have 100 sitting in the cooler all at once. No. We got the quality. We had the guys that would bring them in that wanted that. And that's what we did. Like I said, we did about 1,000 a year. Okay. But they were a good 1,000 going right back out to them.
But see, I think there's a need for someone like you to teach. A lot of these new hunters don't even know how to process a deer. I know how to do it. I choose to support people who do it for a living that are better than me just because I don't want to butcher the meat. And I can afford to pay for it. But I also like the meat processors that can donate the meat to family members that need it. So I've done that on my last couple bucks just because my wife's not a fan of eating it. And so it's one of those deals that, sometimes a beef steak sounds better than a deer steak, but I think if you cook it right, but she's the chef in the house, not me. So
I highly respect and understand both sides of it. We would catch it on both sides, and I would always try to explain, hey, this is the proper way to take care of it while it's thawing out. This is the way you need to prep the chicken fry to where it would be edible. How to soak it, how not to soak it. This isn't type that, what to do to the hamburger to help that out. I mean, you can add certain things to it that really make the meat not taste like it. Take that gaminess out. And I really enjoyed that part of it. Yeah.
Well, so I definitely think you teaching a lecture on that, people would really enjoy it just because there's a young young group of hunters that don't know how to do that. A lot of times I'm the first one they call because I'm going to help them gut the deer, and then I kind of walk them through that. So,
Yeah.
I've processed my daughter's deer just because all the meat processors around me a couple years ago were full, and they wouldn't take any more deer just because they got so many during rifle season, so they couldn't process anymore. And so we had to do hers in the garage, which I think was a good experience for her to see the whole picture on, what you do after you kill a deer versus just dropping it off at a meat processor and let them do all the work. But, um, but
both my girls are RNs, and I can remember the deers hanging up there on the gambles, and they would walk up and go, okay, now this would be this muscle and this would be that. And it would just be so funny listening to them.
Yeah.
Pulling it back to the people.
Yeah. I say, Dave, for everybody out there getting ready to go take life tomorrow, what's your public service announcement on how to care for that game after they get it quartered and in the ice chest? We soak it in ice, not soaking it ice, boning it.
Bone in or boneless doesn't matter at that point. I think you just need to get it as cold as quick as possible. And the best animals that we ever had that we took care of, we soaked them in ice water with salt. The salt is a drying agent, and it pulls the blood out of the meat. If you're doing it at your house, like what you was talking about, put it in an ice chest with water and ice, and put about a half a cup of salt in it, and let it set about 12 hours. Then rinse it all off, start all over, and then you can go to about a half a cup of salt. And if you do that for about 3 days, you'll think, well, the blood's coming out of me. Well, that's what you're doing. That salt draws that blood. That's what it's doing. It's an osmosis process. And by opening up the pores of the meat with the salt, that transfers the fresh water in and pulls that blood out. And that's what you can do. It's a very easy process that anybody can do.
Yeah.
Did you tell me once it was easier to get it off the bone while it's still warm?
Oh, absolutely. I love skinning a deer and boning it. We literally would do one in about 3 or 4 minutes. We would hang it up by its hind legs, and we'd skin it, wash it, and we'd bone it out before. We used to have races, and we could do them in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We'd bone them completely out.
There you go. Sorry, Kreg. We
that's
cut you off.
impressive.
We cut you off before you tell everybody what you're carrying in the woods this year.
Yeah, let's go back to you.
That was very knowledgeable there. I mean, that's the information people need in podcasts. What I shoot doesn't educate people.
Well,
yeah. His shirt answered it for you. So
okay, all right. Well, we're getting close to everyone's bedtime if you're going to get up in the morning and go hunt. So, y'all about ready to wrap this up?
I'm going to say, if you have listened to the podcast or shot an ASA this year, I want to thank Kreg for all the help. He was a huge, huge part of everything good that happened this year. And just want to take a minute to say, I appreciate the heck out of you, dude. You answered so many questions for me that I didn't even know I had yet when we were just getting out of the gate. So from the bottom of my heart, I absolutely thank you.
Yeah, sometimes that's my personality. I mean, I think we had lunch in the first 10 minutes. I was already like saying, "Hey, man, you need a new logo for the archery podcast." And so, I try to do things out of love and not, because I want to see your podcast grow. And I think there's a need for just the archery. There's enough archery stories. That's going to encourage people if they hear your podcast. And so you've got to have a good brand and good image to go with that. So I think that was the first kind of hard conversation you and I had. I was like, "Hey, man, if I was you, I would change this," but it wasn't doing it in a meaningful. I mean, I was trying to do it just so you'd grow.
Yeah.
Hey, we're all in on that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It started with the podcast logo, and it changed to the Oklahoma ASA logo, and then there was plaques and belt buckles and calendars and everything else, and it started with this guy right here in the middle of us. So everybody,
Cool.
you don't get enough credit. I know you have have a full family, so it's hard to make it out to the weekend fun shoots all the time, but I try to let people know. Also, he is a fantastic chiropractor. He absolutely gets to put his hands on people and have them walking straight up when they leave. So tell everybody where your day job is located and where they can get a hold of you.
Well, if you live close to Norman, come see me. If you don't live close to Norman, I can find a chiropractor that's a bow hunter. So there's no need to drive from Deer Creek to come see me in Norman when there's bow hunters all across the state. I think finding somebody that you can connect with, and there's good guys all over the state that send in photos, and so we can find a good chiropractor close by. So.
There you go, man.
All right.
Well, everybody, this is it. We've prepared you as much as we can. We've had tournaments, we've had indoor shoots, we've talked strategy, ozone, deer urine. It's go time. I mean, there's nothing else to do but go get in the woods.
Yep. Good luck to everybody, and take a good photo. Make sure you turn your phone sideways and take a good landscape photo, and take as many pictures as you can. Allows us to post them, try to do a natural setting and not in the back of a pickup.
Keep the blood to a minimum. Y'all be good.
All right. Have good
Bye,
luck.
guys.
Good season.